They forced Henry to attack a notorious gang leader. Terrified, Henry slowly approached, carrying a bucket of paint and a beer bottle. When he finally stood in front of the man, the gangster gave him just one look, and that was enough to send Henry running in panic. From the side, Brian and Jason burst into laughter. They knew Henry would never go through with it. This so-called attack was nothing more than a prank, a setup to humiliate him for their amusement. But just then, seeing them laugh at him, Henry suddenly turned back, rushed up to the gang boss, and dumped the entire bucket of paint on him. Then he smashed the beer bottle over his head. Brian and Jason froze, stunned. They never thought Henry would actually do it. The gang members, seeing their boss get attacked, rushed after the trio. The three ran for their lives, but more and more gang members joined the chase. Suddenly, Jason got caught. Brian panicked. Instead of helping, he dragged Henry and kept running. They dove into a taxi parked on the street. A woman was already inside, and the driver told them to get out. But before the argument could finish, the gangsters had already caught up. Jason floored the gas and sped off. Just when they thought they were in the clear, they ran into a DUI checkpoint ahead. Jason didn't have a license, and he'd been drinking. He tried to back up slowly and get away, but at that moment, the drunken woman in the back seat suddenly woke up and started shouting for help at the cops. Jason and Henry had no choice but to ditch the car and run, but they were quickly caught by the police. Still, they thought, getting arrested is better than getting caught by gangsters. What they didn't notice was something strange in the officer's eyes. Soon, the police car didn't head to the station. It turned back to the very bar where the gang hung out. Turns out, these cops were working with the gang. The three were dragged into the bar. The gang boss handed them a small dish and told them to cut off a finger and drop it in. That would settle the matter. Brian was terrified. He lied to Jason, saying he and Henry had come back just to save him. Otherwise, they would have run off long ago. Then he tried to convince Jason to voluntarily give up a finger. Shockingly, Jason bought it. He thought it over and chose the least useful, his pinky. He asked Brian to do it. With a scream of agony, Jason's pinky was sliced off, and Brian placed it in the dish. But the gang boss wasn't satisfied. He raised his own index finger, clearly indicating, wrong one. Brian turned to Henry next, pleading with him to make a sacrifice. Henry hesitated, then agreed. The boss warned them, this time, don't mess it up. It had to be the index finger of their dominant hand. Brian grabbed Henry's right hand to do it, but Henry quickly pulled back, claiming he was left-handed. So in the end, Henry's left index finger was chopped off. The gang boss finally smiled and offered them sashimi as a reward. But then he noticed Henry was using his right hand effortlessly. He'd been lying. His right hand was clearly dominant. The boss snapped. He rejected the finger. Brian immediately turned to Jason. Just one more, please. Jason glared at him, seething. Brian turned to Henry. You're already missing one. What's one more? Henry had had enough. He grabbed Jason's hand and did it himself. Only then did the gang boss accept the offering, and the three were finally allowed to leave. Some pranks go too far, and when they do, you'd better be ready to pay the price.